When was modernism? Now, this essay is actually a lecture given by Raymond Williams at the University of Bristol in 1987. Before we deal with this lecture or essay, let's have a look at what is modernism. Modernism is a cultural movement. Uh, Literary historians use the term for an explosion of new styles and trends in arts and aesthetics in the first half of the 20th century. Now, what happened was during that period, there was various innovations, be it in literature, painting, music, etc. One main feature of modernist writing or painting is that it celebrated art itself. Unlike the Enlightenment period, that's the 18th century, what was celebrated was science, logic, reason, and all. But during modernism, what was celebrated was art itself, which means the writing was all about the writing, or the painting was all about the painting. The central focus was on art. Another aspect of modernism is that there was a total departure from the conventional mode of writing. Like till then, if you take the case of the novels, till then the novels had a proper structure. Like they had the beginning, the middle, the end, and there would be an omniscient narrator in the novel and all that. Like if you see Thomas Hardy's works and all. But what modernist writers did was their writing did not have a proper structure. They broke away from the sequential development of the plot, the cause and effect presentation of reality and all that. Even the language for that matter was very complex and nuanced in modernist writings. It was very ambiguous, there were a lot of connotations used, and it was a kind of experimentation. In paintings, there were a lot of innovations, like there was the development of cubism, impressionism, and all that. One major feature of modernism is that it was basically considered an elite movement. Now, why was it considered an elite movement? Is because it was restricted only among a handful of people, and moreover, the language of the text, uh, the complexity of the text, and all were far beyond the comprehension of the general public. Like if you see Joyce Ulysses or Eliot's Wasteland, they were very complicated that people couldn't actually comprehend these writings. So modernism was basically restricted only among these writers and painters, so it was considered an elite movement. In this lecture, what Williams does is he critically looks at why only certain authors were credited for modernism. Like most works during this period are considered masterpieces, like they are highly celebrated. But what is the problem Williams points out is that uh, since they were given credit for the innovations they brought about in art and aesthetics, how can we very conveniently forget the traditional writers? Because without them, these innovations wouldn't have been possible. The innovations were brought about in traditional writing. So obviously their work should be given equal credit as well. Another feature of modernist writings or paintings was that they all dealt with a common theme, the theme being of isolation or alienation. Most often than not, what we see is the individuals were basically cut off from society. They were totally isolated, and it always dealt with the individual's thought process or experience. Now, in this lecture, Williams tries to give a possible explanation to this isolation. Mm, what happened during that time was there was a wide-scale change in the media of cultural production. Photography, radio, television, and all that were gaining wide-scale importance, and public were increasingly getting drawn by these medium. It was pretty attractive. People preferred watching TV than reading a novel or watching a movie and all that. So what Williams trying to say is that by creating innovations in the form of writing and all that, the writers were actually reacting to this progression in media. Like it is an effort to defend their own territories. It's like to say that they were employing different strategies to market themselves better. Hence, there were innovations like interior monologue or stream of consciousness and all that. Another reason is during that time there was wide-scale migration of writers and intellectuals. They were constantly moving in and around cities, basically cities like Berlin, London, New York, Paris, and all that. But with World War I and the introduction of passports, this free movement was constrained. So obviously the writers felt alienated in their new atmosphere. They couldn't move about as freely as they could earlier. because they were stuck in these new environment and they felt cut off. So they wrote about this alienation or isolation they felt. So these works are basically only portraying the experience of only a handful of people, the situation or the scenario during that time, the culture, all that has been ignored. All that we know is about a very few elite intellectual crowd, their feeling of isolation and all that. And also in trying to defend their territories, in trying to create these innovations, what happened was their works got commodified. They were more concerned with making it better so that it has a better value and all that. So what is happening is these works, which were anti-bourgeoisie initially, were becoming more bourgeoisie, and they got into this competition, cultural competition, and fetishizing and all that. So what Williams basically does in this essay is he confiscates this romantic element of modernism, this notion of modernism being a highly celebrated cultural movement where various innovations in art and literature, where innovations in art and literature and all, he's attributing certain political reasons to this. It was not like they just began, employing these new literary devices or writing about individual experience. There was a strong social political conditions behind all this, which is what is being spoken about in this lecture of Raymond Williams. Thank you.